That's good, Jared.
Yeah. So, okay. I'm having some technical difficulties, so I'm gonna wing this. My presentation was mostly pictures, so I'm gonna try to just pull them up as I go. But I do have kind of a structure. I just wanted to walk you through. Sorry, my name's Aiyla. uh, Over winter break, I went to Blue Cliff Monastery in Pine Bush, New York, for an Odyssey trip in the global awareness category. And I did so because I've always been fascinated with Buddhism, but I was actually just trying to fill up my last Odyssey space, and I was thinking of things that I wanted to do that I don't really study in school, but that I wanted to learn more about. So I found Blue Cliff Monastery just through kind of searching online for different monasteries in the country. And I don't know, it kind of just called out to me. I looked through the website and I really liked kind of the schedule of things. Like it was structured, but not um, like it wasn't a silent retreat. It wasn't anything that was too serious. So I felt that it would be a really good beginner retreat for someone who had never really engaged in that practice before. Um, and so this is the first thing that you see when you arrive. When you arrive, and as I arrived, I'm home. And a big thing in Engage Buddhism, which is created by Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese Zen master, um, is that with each step that you take, you have to be present in the moment and not worry about what's going to come, because it's all about finding happiness in the present moment, which we can get more into later. But that's the background of the monastery as a whole. Sorry, the technology thing kind of threw me off a bit, but let's see. All right, one of the on the biography on the website, there's a quote or kind of a summary of Thich Nhat Hanh's views, and it's through mindfulness we can learn to live happily in the present moment, and doing so is about being mindful in every practice that you do. And so a day in the life, like a typical day that I had when I was there was a 6 a.m. meditation, which I'm going to be honest, I only went to once because everything was optional. And I really enjoyed my mornings because everyone would kind of leave and I would get to get ready by myself and kind of have the morning on my own in noble silence. And then my bunkmates would go to the 6 a.m. meditation, and then there would be a 7 a.m. exercise, and then 8 a.m. breakfast. And then after that, I would join them for the 9:30 a.m. Dharma talk, which was either a video or like a pre-recorded video of Thich Nhat Hanh in one of his Dharma talks. And on Sunday, which is their day of mindfulness, so a lot of people come to the monastery just for the Dharma talk and lunch. We actually had Sister Empathy give a Dharma talk on love and understanding, which was really interesting. And you can find it on YouTube if you're interested in listening to it yourself. And then after Dharma talk, you would kind of get a break to do your own thing. You can meditate on your own. They had 2 meditation halls. So there was the big hall, which the outside looks like this. So that's the big hall. And one of the first things that you see when you get there is deer that are like right on the property. And they're so friendly with the sisters because the sisters will feed them all of like the extra greens. And there's also a lot of hunting that kind of happens like up north from their property. So the deers kind of find the monastery as their sanctuary, which I think is really beautiful. And so there's the big hall, and that's on the brother side of the monastery. And then there's the sister side, which is the side I stayed on. And so there's 2 different meditation halls, and you're welcome to go in there at any time. You're welcome to really use any space in the monastery. and there's no like rules necessarily. In the sense they don't take your phones, like they're not on you to go to every event. It's kind of a you came here to us, like engage with it how you please, which I thought was really interesting. Um, and then at 11:15 we would join for a singing meditation, which was it was kind of scary at first because like there's no music to accompany it, so it's all a cappella and it's with people, like especially the first time it was with people that I had never met before. But I really that grew to be one of my favorite activities. There's still songs that I like have stuck in my head from the trip. And then at 11:30 we would go for a walking meditation, and they had beautiful trails on both the sister and the brother's side. Um, and I mean, I probably could have explored so much into it. Like it went back so far. I don't know how many acres of land they have. But I think the singing and the walking meditation was my favorite way to engage in mindfulness. Um, Especially because I think being on campus and walking so fast to get everywhere and like not really taking the time to look around me, there you're really forced to slow down. And one of the sisters or the brothers will lead you on the walk. And we go like it was really slow. And it was kind of hard at first to slow my body down like that and not feel rushed and not feel like it was kind of a competition in a way to like get to the end of the trail. Um, and so by the end of it, like I was walking slowly without even thinking about it, like no matter where I was going. Um, and then after the walking meditation, we would go and get ready for lunch, which lunch is a really cool experience because the first 20 minutes you don't talk at all. Um, and it's all kind of buffet style, so you get what you want. Um, and then I think only for lunch we would do kind of like a prayer before lunch, but it was mostly about giving thanks to the earth and being mindful about not overconsuming, not contributing to climate change, and really understanding where the food that you're eating is coming from and how much work had to be put into it and what we take away and how to give back. Um, and then they also encourage you to kind of each bite, you should take like 20 bites before you swallow. And doing everything just very slowly and with mindfulness, which I know gets repetitive, but that really is the point that they're trying to convey. And then after lunch, we would join the sisters for a working meditation. One of the days we did, I think I cut tomatoes for probably an hour, but they like it was the day before the big lunch, so we had to prepare a lot of food. And they washed their fruits and veggies like 3 or 4 times. And it was kind of hard, not hard, but everything wasn't done in silence, but it was done with the meaningfulness not to just like make small talk necessarily. And so I really took that to heart and tried to observe mostly. And when the sisters presented me with the opportunity to kind of ask more questions, I would take that. But I really wanted to just be with them in their space and follow them. Um, and honestly, I was talking to some of the debunked mates, and we do think sometimes the washing the fruits over and over again kind of was busy work to just make sure that like we felt included because um, it got to a point where there wasn't that much to do. But then other times we would also do like housework and just like sweeping and doing laundry. But it was always so joyful. And one of the times I was with Sister Fairy Tale, which I think their names are so beautiful because they're chosen specifically for them. And they have their Vietnamese names because most of them are from Vietnam. There's a few people from America, like people who have come and trained at the monastery, but a lot of them will come from Vietnam to live at the monastery. And so they have their Vietnamese names, but then they have, I guess, like their English names. So Sister Fairy Tale, when we were doing housekeeping, she was telling me about the first time that she ever saw snow. And because in Vietnam, they don't have snow. And even like some of the places that she first traveled to, she had never experienced snow. And so the first time was when she walked out of the meditation hall with the sisters. And she remembered they were all like dancing and singing in the snow. And like, I don't know, it was really cool to hear. And you could tell she was happy to be able to tell that story. But I loved the working meditations, and I usually hate doing dishes, but I actually enjoyed doing it while I was at the monastery. Um, and then after walking meditation, we would do a sitting meditation, which was sometimes guided, but usually it was like 45 minutes of stillness, which the first time was really hard. And I felt by like after 15-20 minutes, I was ready to like be done, but I pushed through it. And then by the second or third time, you kind of start to get used to it and it really becomes relaxing. And for them, the purpose is not to clear your mind, but rather to focus on moments in your life that you want to reflect on and kind of look into how you can be more mindful about your relationships, like who you talk to, and really how to love and be at peace with everything, but also not be complicit. Uh, Especially Thich Nhat Hanh was an activist, and he was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King Jr. And I don't think he won it, but like he is, I think his activism is mainly through his work as an author, but also in building communities so that people can come together that aren't like-minded, in the sense that, like, trying to find the words to like-minded, but also very different in ways that they can come together and sort through their differences and be at peace with each other rather than feeling hate for each other. And like listening to the Dharma talks, it really seems to be trying to eliminate that in-group, out-group mentality, especially since interbeing is like a big aspect of Buddhism, and trying to, like, we are all one and we all should love each other as we are one, which I think is really beautiful. And then at 6 o'clock, we would have dinner. And then after that, we would all go back to our, I say bunks, but we had our bunk mates, and then it was kind of cabins. It used to be a resort, so the buildings were pretty old. But I had 5 other bunk mates, and so trying to describe this. Yeah, so we had 5 people, and we shared one bathroom, and then across from us were all the winter retreat people, and they keep it separated based on sex. But like you can go on either side of the monastery, and if you wanted to stay as like a couple, I think they have like housing for that as well. But it was really interesting because you would think that it would be hard to share a room with 5 other people for 7 days in one bathroom. But I felt like we all got along really well. And like, I mean, obviously we weren't really getting ready for anything. Like this was kind of our attire every day. It was just sweatpants, very comfortable, loose fitting clothes. But we also got really close, and we even were able to do a private Dharma sharing, which is kind of like a therapy circle, but not having a one-on-one conversation with people, but rather sharing experiences that relate or could give advice to someone else's worries or sufferings without like directly calling out that person in a way. Because the first few days were pretty hard, and like especially being away from everyone and not really having, like, I wouldn't say I was stuck at the monastery. Like I could leave if I wanted to, but like you are there for 7 days without going like off of campus. I can't think of a different word, but like off location. And so one of my bunkmates noticed that I was kind of like feeling anxious and having a hard time. And so she ended up talking to me and then organizing the Dharma share. And all of them had been to the monastery before and had done different experiences like this. So they actually ended up sharing their experiences of still feeling anxious the first time that they go to a monastery. And like the first night is always the hardest, and you don't really get good sleep, just trying to readjust to that new environment. But you always end up coming out with a positive experience. And so that was really beautiful. And I felt like that was probably on Sunday or Monday. I arrived on a Friday and left on a Friday. So it was pretty early in the trip. And so we all stayed very close for the rest of the week. And I had a picture on my laptop that I don't think it's on here. But we got to take a picture in front of the sign, which says, it's got the same messaging as the I am here, I have arrived, but it's kind of on like a gong looking piece, which is really cool. But yeah, I'm gonna open it up to questions because I feel like I'm rambling. But I apologize for the technology mess up. Do you have any questions or things you want to know more about?
Was there like lessons or I mean,
So I guess the Dharma talks I would consider were the lessons. And they didn't have one every day. I think they only hosted 3, and then we asked to have a video shared. Like we asked to watch a video in the meditation hall because it was like personal practice time. So it's not every day that they give one, because Monday is a lazy day after everyone has come for the weekend. Because not everyone, you choose how long you want to stay, and so some people will come for the weekend. Some people will just come for the Sunday, the day of mindfulness. And I think Thursday they also have a day of mindfulness on the brother's side, where they host some people. But that doesn't seem like it wasn't as busy that day, so I don't know who exactly they invite on Thursdays. But yeah, the Dharma talk, we only had one live one, and then the rest were videos, which were hard to follow, especially if you were in the back and couldn't hear very well. Because they talk very slowly and with intention, but after 30 minutes to an hour in a dark meditation hall, it could get hard to follow. So I do wish they had done more live ones.
What's the audience size, the group size and all? For
the Sunday, it was pretty big. And I was told like we were there on a pretty slow weekend. And the day that we left was Thich Nhat Hanh's, which they call him Tay. So I'm gonna say Tay because that was hard to say. Tay's memorial service was that weekend. And so I was told that there was going to be a lot of people there. And when I was doing housekeeping, like we were setting up beds like in the attic of the sisters' workroom. And so they were, it gets pretty packed. And I know they also record them, not all the time, but sometimes.
Did you say something about stillness meditation or something?
Yeah, so there we had different kinds of meditation. There was sitting meditations, singing meditation, a walking meditation, and then working meditation. And I would say the sitting meditation is the stillness meditation. But
did you find it hard to get yourself to shut up on the inside?
what do you mean?
I mean, I'm people for a bit. I'm still thoughts are still quite. It takes a long time for them to just sort of slow down, get quiet.
I think the fact that I traveled on a train before I got there really helped with that. I don't really know how to like I feel like by the time I got there, I was already calm and I was ready to like be quiet for a while. So I think just being prepared for it really helps, at least with like the thought aspect. But I think my body reacted in a different way to like being in a new area. Because I didn't really realize that I was anxious until like the second day when I was finding it kind of hard to eat.
Mm.
And I was like, why do I not feel well? And then after that talk, I was like, oh, I feel scared of being in this place and not being like not having people that are usually my safety net there, I guess.
Remember your itinerary, like, at- when you left, did you then spend some time in New York City?
I did.
And
And
what was that transition to go from this quiet, lovely place
yeah,
to a vibrant, lovely, loud place?
it was shocking, especially so I left the monastery and there was two other girls that were leaving at the same time as me, and we were all going to New York Penn Station. And so we shared the taxi from the monastery and took the train together. And so like I was still like kind of like socially weaning myself into the city a bit. But as soon as I got in that subway station, it was like go, go, go. And that was definitely shocking, especially after being forced to slow everything down for 7 days and then going to a very busy city. But luckily I was able to kind of rest the first night. Like I didn't do much, but then I mean we walked from probably like 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. every day.
Were you walking mindfully?
No. I think I did try like when we were on the subway, I think that was a good time to kind of practice the mindfulness. But it definitely showed me how hard it was to apply these practices to real life, because like life is hard and it's hard to slow down and it's hard to not get angry at things. Like even I didn't realize like how irritated I get at like little things like that I never really realized before. And I'm like, why am I feeling this way? There's no need to be angry about, or not even angry, but just like feeding into the negativity, I guess. But it did show me like it was easy to do that at the monastery because I had the time to be quiet and sit with myself and think about the why of it all. But then, like coming back, going to New York and then coming right back to school, uh, that definitely, I guess, a reality check, I would say.
What are some things you're trying or aspirationally hopeful that you'll be able to do in your daily life now?
I've been trying to like come to campus early so that I can walk to class slower. And like when I am walking fast, I try to like slow down and really think about, not only think about, but just like look around me and notice the things that are going on. And at that moment, kind of get outside of my head so that I can come back into myself, feeling a little bit more focused and not so rushed. But I think also just being more mindful about my relationships and like putting more love and compassion into relationships. And especially just like social media can be so draining and negative. So I think like not feeding into some of like looking at comments and getting like angry about things that are so out of my control, and kind of remembering that while I don't know those people, they're still people, and trying to remember to keep that love and compassion. Tay kind of describes it as like feeding or watering those seeds of love and compassion, and then not tending to the seeds of like violence and hate. So like I think about that a lot, just in every interaction that I have, and trying to not water those seeds, but to water the ones of love. Yes. I'm trying to pull up some more pictures.
Do you go back every year now and sort of recharge, or is it?
So they have a monastery up in Missouri. I wanted to travel a bit out of the South for the Odyssey trip. But I think definitely like the summer, or if not annually, if not biannually, then annually, to go and like even for a weekend rather than a week. But I think it definitely is recharging.
Hmm.
I don't think it should be used as like therapy necessarily. Um, because it is something that is, you can't practice every day to the full extent that you're able to there. But I think it should be used as a recharge and like a grounding, like genuinely a retreat, like to, yeah. That makes sense. Mm. There's a cool picture of the brothers, which I realized like when I was researching the monastery, I didn't know anyone in the pictures. And then when I was looking yesterday to find some photos, I was like, wait, I know those guys. And that was pretty cool. Let's see. And also in the 7 days I was there, we celebrated 3 brothers' birthdays. Um, and they'll make a cake. I think it's vegan. I think everything was vegan. I know it was definitely all vegetarian. Um, but one thing I saw was that they don't blow out the candles. I think they like pinch them. And they didn't really explain why, but one of my roommates who had been there before, she said she thinks it has something to do with like not using your life to take away life. And like they apply that so much to even like blowing out a flame, which I don't really know how pinching it is not the same, but that was really cool to think about. But these are what the brothers look like. And it was his birthday that we celebrated. And then one of the eldest brothers. But this is them doing their chanting meditation, which we didn't participate in, but we watched it. They'll chant in Vietnamese and they'll have their like instruments, and it's really cool. And I couldn't find a video online of it, which I wish I could. Um, but they'll do a Vietnamese chant of one of the Buddha's like stories that's giving like a moral lesson. Um, and I think that was probably the time I felt the most spiritual, like where I actually felt like I could feel like vibrations going through me in that way. Um, but we only did that twice. Mm. Yeah, here is the training hall. Or the meditation hall. So it's pretty big.
Yes. That's right.
Mhm. Oh, everything was gorgeous. And they're building the nunnery. Yeah, they're building the nunnery. It's a work in progress, but they should be able, because I think right now the nuns are living in the guest housing. And so once they open that up, I think they'll be able to bring in more guests. And also the nuns will have their own like privacy and places to live. Which is really cool.
So you're like walking through here, not this room, but this place. What is the thing you didn't know ahead of time that surprised you?
I think how ritualistic they are. I'm kind of nervous to do this because I feel like I don't want to disrespect the process. But every meditation or even like uh, every meal, meditation, and like walking, singing, anything like that was started with a bow to the bell, a bow to Buddha, and then three bell sounds. And so Dr. Gorvine let me this. And so first you have to, I guess, like wake it up and invite it into you. And then the sound of the bell invites you to take an in breath and an out breath. And the mantra they use is, I'm aware of my in breath, I'm aware of my out breath. And then that invites you into either the eating meditation, whatever kind of meditation you're engaging in. And then also, I think we have a Buddha in the corner. I can't, but you would bow to each other and you would bow to the Buddha. But then the thing I did not see coming was the touching of the earth, which I'm not gonna do, but you basically, you'll get on the ground. It's kind of like doing burpees in a way. Like it was kind of an exercise because you have to do them 3 in a row. And once the bell clings, they do it pretty quickly, but you'll get on the ground and you put your forehead to the earth. But then it's a really uncomfortable position and you have to engage yourself to stay there. And then you come up and you bow again. And you do that 3 times. And I didn't see it coming. So I was like, what is happening? So I think just definitely how ritualistic they are. But doing so, like it's not a prayer, it is out of respect for the object and also the presence of Buddha, since we are all Buddha, since we're all one. That's what I interpret.
Nobody's teaching you this as you were walking through. You pick up on it and now you're doing it too. That's interesting.
And like they mention it, but they do give very Buddhist answers when you ask them a question. Like they'll kind of just refer back to a mantra, refer back to one of Tay's sayings, which is why I was like, okay, let me just sit back and observe, because I felt like asking questions wasn't the best way to gather information in that moment. But I feel like I did learn a lot just through observation and listening. And they have the 5 mindfulness trainings, which I had on my beautiful presentation. So I can't get to them. But one of the mindfulness practices is noble silence and deep listening. And so really like knowing how to not only be quiet, but to listen and like comprehend what people are saying and to think about how you're going to respond in a way that is, I keep saying mindful, but like, I mean, it's that's what you described. It's just.
Would classes be better if we had these thoughts in us when we were going through class? Yeah. Tell me.
For example, I make a lot of facial expressions.
I noticed that.
So I think like one way I could probably be more mindful in class is like literally watching my face and being mindful of how I'm processing information and how I'm presenting my reactions to other people so as not to cause like distress unto others. And also like when we ask questions, learning how to really ask them in a way that doing so where you're thinking before you're speaking. Like a lot of this I think refers back to like common phrases we were taught when we were younger, but I think we do forget them. And like speaking slowly and taking a moment before you go on to your next sentence. I think that's a way to kind of incorporate that into class.
Who were some of the people you were with, the other visitors? Like you indicated they had all done this before, but like who were they? Were they your age? Were they older, younger? What?
So the girls that I was staying with, we were all there for 7 days, and so I was the youngest in that group. But I don't think I wasn't the youngest at the retreat. There was 2 or 3 other people that were probably closer to my age. The second youngest in my group was 35. And then I think the oldest was 65 to 70. So it was a pretty big age range. And Natasha she's from Russia. And she grew up in Russia. And she had been to a Tibetan monastery. And I think most of them were from around the area of New York, like either Pennsylvania, Boston. I was the furthest away from home out there, which was kind of cool. Like I felt like not an outsider in a bad way, but like in a good way. Like I was kind of able to see what Northerners are like. Because I was not born here, but I was raised in the South. And so it was really cool to talk to them. And one of them is a healthcare lawyer. The other one worked in the White House in tech. And I had some really good conversations with her. And then one of them had just retired, and she was actually starting. She recently discovered she was an artist, and she's been doing shibori. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but that was really cool. And so she was working on that while she was there. And so like they were all, mind you, I'm pretty sure everyone there was either white or Vietnamese. So the demographics weren't that diverse, I guess, but the age ranges and like different professions and stuff that definitely varied.
Or Northerners different.
I think so. Like even in New York City, I will say I went to one gas station and like I remember she asked me where I was from, and I told her I was from Arkansas. And she was like, "Oh, that's why you're so nice." Which like I didn't think anyone was mean there, but I think maybe Southerners are definitely like this like Southern hospitality. Like I don't think I realized how much that really was present. But yeah, I mean, all of my experiences were pretty positive. There was one guy at the train station that, when we were coming back from the monastery, he was pestering us for a cigarette, and he not only did he like ask us for one, but then when we told him no, then he started like complaining about how he wasn't healthy and we were, and so that was kind of weird. But we just we practiced our mindfulness, didn't engage. And like he left us alone. But honestly, like that's the most like that's the only story I have of someone like doing something to bother me or like weird in that way. But yeah, they seem just like us. What do you think you're doing?
Um, I would say there are differences in how we talk to each other, just how direct they are. So this doesn't seem like the kind of place where you're going to walk up and just start chatting with people, right? So you may not have come to play very much. You're talking very carefully, very mindfully. That gets you all in the same sort of zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like I did have conversations with other people. Like I met someone, her family owns a flower farm, and I had never heard of a farm. But we ended up talking about like the ethics of flowering, which I never would have thought to have that conversation before. And there were a lot of like different guests, and like you kind of, I think the most socialization was done kind of after the 20 minutes of silence at dinner.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, like you're at your tables, and then you start engaging in not small talk, but like actual, like, why are you here? What do you try? Like, what do you need in a way? Or like, what do you want to tell me? Yeah.
do you think you'll do with this experience? Obviously, in the short term, you're wrapping things up here, but like, do you want to study Buddhism more, read more Tay, or are you gonna find a local group to join, or like, what are you thinking about exploring here?
There is a local Sangha, which Sangha is just community. But there's a local Sangha in Little Rock, and so I definitely want to go there and see what they're about. On their website, I saw they do, I think, like a monthly potluck. So I think,
Barn dance. Ooh, that would be nice.
yeah, so I'm definitely gonna check that out. And I would love to read more Tay, especially after I graduate and have time to kind of read more stuff like for personal study. I'd like to do that. But I think I'm a philosophy and psychology major. And so even in my classes, like as especially like I'm in Stoics, skeptics, and Epicureans, and like taking that class after going to the monastery, like I feel like I'm able to see the bigger picture of all of these different like philosophical ideas and arguments out there, and almost like synthesize these arguments together in my head. So I think really applying it to my studies, both in philosophy and psychology, I think like it's already embedded in me. Like it is already there. But I'm very interested in how Buddhism and Eastern cultures have influenced Western cultures in ways that we're not even aware of. That's something I've been thinking about lately.
Okay, so questions.
I'm just kind of curious, instead of like during eating, they'll talk about like appreciating where the food is from.
Mm.
Do they make the food there? Or do they get it also?
So I think in the summer they have a garden, but I know in the winter it's hard to really grow anything. I don't know where they get the food. It did kind of seem like they just kind of ordered from like Costco or something. But I could be wrong. They could be getting from local farms, but they didn't really talk about that. That's something to think about. Yeah. I know probably the one in Missouri would be more like farm to table, just because the growing conditions would be a bit more ideal for that. Are there any pictures you want to see? Pull up some more.
Yeah.
Do you have any of the view there? Yeah, I think maybe I can think about it myself. Oh, actually, I already put that. I had access to my phone, but I was running on it like I went to the bathroom. That was kind of when I took my me time, but especially after like being with everyone. Let me give my time. Let's see if I can pull this up. Like living with everyone else, it was kind of hard to find a space where you could be alone. But like I would get on it for like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and then I would realize like there was nothing on it to really look at. And so I really just kept my phone like under my pillow in the dorm, and I never took it out. And so I didn't get many pictures, which I wish I took more or brought like a disposable camera or something. But I'm glad that they have pictures online to kind of show at least what it looked like. I don't know if this is gonna work. I think the Odyssey might be the Odyssey Instagram might be posting the pictures I took. There's only two. It was just one of me in front of the sign. And then there was a really good group photo that we got uh, of my bunkmates, and then one of the sisters. I honestly don't know her name. She was just passing by, and they were like, "Come take a picture with us." Uh, but it was really cool for them to be so happy, and I like you can just tell that they love having people there and love being able to like socialize and have that share their lifestyle with other people. And Sister Empathy, she gave the Dharma talk, and it was on one of the days that was like really busy. And I ended up seeing her Thursday night, and we would wash our own dishes, and so there was kind of like a line. And she was on the other side of the dish line, and so I like told her how much I really appreciated, or how much I liked her Dharma talk, and she was shocked that I knew she was shocked that I remembered her, and like remembered her name too, and like her face just like lit up when she realized that I recognized her, and so I don't know, seeing her so happy like that, it made me really happy, and I was glad that I paid attention enough to like remember those things because it is hard to associate the names because they don't talk as much, like they're not like introducing themselves necessarily, um, and like when they would write on the board they would use their Vietnamese names instead of the names that they would verbally say, so it's kind of hard to match everything up. But I remember Sister Empathy, Sister Flowers, and Sister Fairy Tale were the ones that kind of like I engaged with the most, at least. So
Names self-chosen or given?
they're given. So I did ask about that process because one of the aspirants on the brother's side was about to become a novice monk. I think like the Monday after we left. And so I was curious, like, if he was gonna get his new name and like if he chose that. But when they become a monk, they have to like write a letter to the council of, I don't really know like what to call it, but the council of kind of the elders. And they'll read the letter and they'll kind of, it's usually chosen based off of what you can improve in more, or like what you're interested in, but something that you should aspire to improve it. And so I thought that was really interesting. Yeah. But I don't know what the new brother's name is. But
It's interesting. It's not like a resort. They're not seeing you as paying customers as a source of revenue, and they're not recruiting you. That they want you there because they're also benefiting in a way from it. It sounds
Yeah.
like.
because it's all donation based. They have like they're recommended, this is what will keep the lights on. But also like if you aren't able to pay that amount, like they're not gonna stop you from coming, or they'll help you. And usually the max you can stay is 2 weeks, and then after that you have to write a letter explaining why you want to stay, and usually that would entail that you're kind of thinking about going on the track to become a monk, which they have like a 5-year monk program. Like they have programs where you can just do it for 5 years and then go back to your regular life, I guess. But I know to become a monk, you have to give up everything. Like you have to sell all of your items, like give up all of your money. You can't become a monk if you have any physical disabilities or anything that would require, I guess, like taking more resources for like one individual, which is something to think about. I think it makes sense on a level, but that was something after I read about it, it did make me wonder about those who would like to become monks, but maybe aren't in the financial situation or need more financial support. And then it's 5 times.
It's certainly close enough. Well, thank you very much, Aiyla. We really appreciate your sharing. Looks like next week's talk. I know it's on Zoom. Do we have more information? The speaker is from Alberta. Will be joining us from Alberta, I think. And Hunting as Going Home is the title. That's writing for more detail if you're interested. So hopefully you can join us. And hopefully someone knows how to run the Zoom side. Okay, sorry.
There's also interfaith hour. It's gonna be ethical dilemmas in medicine and technology. And that's Tuesday.
That's a week
at
from yesterday.
Cool. And then so you want to stay at 6 o'clock, we're gonna have a Black Mirror viewing party with the Philosophical Society.
Cool, thank you. Good job.
Sorry. Thank you guys.
Oh, they're kind of light. Who cares about that? Break it down. We got it all figured out. We already solved it all last year, so you know what to do now. Yes. Okay, what's that? Yes,
Why not turn the microphone on?
You find out about this.
Okay, I guess the longest one is my mom gave me